our guest speaker, Joy Paul, Regional Leader of Analytics, AI, Risk, and ESG from GBM, to introduce his topic on lessons learned in implementing advanced AI and machine learning.
As the presentation actually kind of comes in, I have some good news. We talk about AI and we're all fearful of AI catching on. There are certain things which machines are great. For example, they're very, very good from natural language point of view. The ability to kind of learn languages, they're good. They're very good when it comes to pattern identification. They have endless capacity. They can work for 24/7 for the whole 365. They never get tired. And they're extremely good. They're very, very good in eliminating bias. Every one of us are biased. We want to say we are unbiased. There is no one who is unbiased, actually, and that's what the quote is. But machines are very, very good when it comes to eliminating bias. And these are very, very good. Machine learning, they're very, very good at actually. They're very good when it comes to locating knowledge. That's the good part of that. But humans are different. Dreaming, that's a uniqueness of humans. Our ability for abstraction, you just draw one big figure and say, that's the GDP of United States. And then you draw one small figure like this and say, that's the GDP of Senegal. One big round and one small round. And we understood exactly what that meant. That ability to abstract things, ability to generalize things, ability to dream, ability to kind of act with compassion, stand for morals. We're very, very good when it comes to dilemma handling. I mean, these are pure common sense. This is what makes us human. Now, if you're in the business of locating knowledge, then we will have a problem. Then we need to be fearful. But remain what makes us human, then there is nothing else to be worried about. And use the cognitive to work with us. And then they talk about singularity a day when they actually kind of take all these points at what makes us human, and if the computers actually kind of AI reaches there, as the old adage goes, then AI has become human. They will have exactly the same problems. What AI as humans as we today have, AI will have the same problem. So don't worry about it. So on that good note, what do we learned as in terms of the lessons learned? And that's what we want to kind of keep it out here. But I want to kind of give a context here. These are things when we went across and did this AI, we faced this problem. We want to kind of consolidate it and put across to you so that you don't make those mistakes. But before that, I want to kind of put a context, and the context is this. Anything that we do in AI, anything that we do in machine learning can be compartmentalized in 3 buckets. Anything, any activity that you actually kind of do. Let me just see if the mic works. And the first one is actually in terms of improve the top line, augment a customer experience, or optimize the bottom line in terms of efficiency. Any guesses which is the third one? Any innovation, any work that you do in your organization will fall into these 3 buckets. Amen, indeed. Dalal, yeah, it is eliminating risk. How do we mitigate risk? Anything that we actually do. Like, for example, you take up new product experience. It actually falls in the first bucket. The second one, in terms of modernization, it falls into kind of make a better customer experience to increase your top line. Or you actually kind of say cost optimization models. It's to kind of better the second bucket. Or you say fraud detection. It actually falls into any. So that's a good thing. And we're going to use this AI, and we're going to take 3 use cases where we did in these 3, and the lessons that we actually learned when we deployed AI. So just an aspect of here, and who started this particular discussion, I believe it was you, ma'am, and she said something beautiful, in fact. She said, data in itself will not give you that requirement. That was the opening line. And he said, the key thing is in terms of what knowledge we make out of the data. And that's the challenge. And that's what we're actually trying to kind of make AI for. And they're beautiful when it comes to locating knowledge. Obviously based on ML algorithms, but they're very, very good when it comes to it. And it follows that typical process of you need to kind of collect your data, get the data in the right shape, model the data, visualize the data, simulate, use the results, and it's a full turn. But all these particular ones to kind of those 3 use cases that we talked about, those 3 major buckets that we talked about. You with me? So next few minutes is actually just to kind of understand when we implemented one of these enablers, so we have been doing those three things perennially, using Excel or using a normal, we have been doing this, it's not new. So what is new here? New is using the new enabler, which is available for you. Like you can still walk it from here to Rue, or you can take a car. Now car is an enabler because that's a new technology available. In that way, there are many new technologies available to solve those three problems. And that is transformation. Transformation is not that, oh, suddenly transformation came in. No, transformation is using those new digital enablers, and these are more all around the digital, be it in terms of the IoT, augmented reality, artificial intelligence, drones, blockchain. These are all enablers trying to do all those three works that we actually kind of doing. And that's transformation, and that's digital transformation. We've all been transforming. It's just as a 21st century innovation that transformation came in. So just want to kind of get that particular point on. And with that note on, I want to kind of pick up three use cases. We've got about less than 15 minutes to do this. Let's rush that actually on. Okay. Now, to do this particular one, the first one, and we talked about this particular aspect quite much in the discussion. And here is the premise. The premise is this. Making data accessible is one of the first lessons that we learned. We thought, oh, data, AI is get all the data because you got the compute power, get all the data available. No, that is only one part of the problem. Making data available, be it data lake, data warehouse, is only one problem. Making data accessible is another problem. I want to kind of keep that particular thing in mind. Let's see when it kind of goes in. And this is early on that we actually kind of found out. The more you have it, the data, the more you realize the lack of data. So you'll get more data. Then you'll get more data. And that's the key thing actually out here. But here is a problem. This data is not machine readable. So you got a couple of these data actually in one place. It's like I'm learning Arabic, I still don't learn. So if I've got an Omani, I'm an Indian, just because we are together in one place, that doesn't mean that we can communicate each other. And that's the problem right now. We have put in data lakes, and you're putting a machine on top of it. The machine is not in a machine readable format. Are you with me? So just getting data alone will not, and that is a big problem that we faced. We said, okay, it's all about big data. Let's get as much as data as possible. Now here is a small problem in that. Big data, more than big data, you need a variety of data. Just big data itself of one specific pattern will create more problems than solutions. So just want to kind of get that particular thing. Along with that big data, you also need a variety of data. And I'll come to that particular problem as I go across the second issue. But data itself doesn't make the new oil. You need a context. Let me give you an example. So we actually kind of did this particular example. We did it for the largest telco and also for the largest central bank in the region. And we did a risk management solution for them. So we did their operation risk, we did their policy and compliance, and we had this beautiful dashboards kind of coming across. It showed what's their exposure and everything. Now, those who are not actually within the risk parlance, let me just spend the next 2 minutes just to make you understand how is typically risk management is being done. So you identify there is a risk in running a company. I'll give you a small example. An example could be that there is a corruption in awarding tender. So that's a risk. Now, how do we ensure that we do not actually have corruption, we don't have bribery or a collusion internally? So we say one of the ways you can actually kind of put a control to that is I'll put a control saying the person who actually initiates a request cannot be the person who will approve the request. So there are two people at least. You will at least have more than at least 3 vendors being called in for the same thing. You don't do a single. These are all controls. You see what I'm saying? There is a risk that we identified, and then we identify controls how we can mitigate that risk. Now this is the way it actually kind of works. So in a risk parlance, you have your company, your organization, and then you have a process. A process in this particular case is a procurement. And then you identify the various risks, and then you actually kind of go and say, these are the controls. Now here is the thing that we did. We collected all this data. We had the risk data, we had the control data, and then we periodically did the tests to see whether it's actually going good, right, not on, and the test results, and we actually kind of published it. Now, when we did that, we were able to kind of come out with those reports, but we want AI to be working on that, and that's where we faced the problem. We had data about risk. We had data about controls, but we never had the relationship between them, which means that that's another, that risk can be mitigated by, and that's a wording, by controls. This can be mitigated by controls. Okay, now that is setting a context. If you don't do this, just having risk data, just having control data, it will not make the connection. It's not machine ready. So this particular thing, what we kind of call it as relationship, just to kind of have a technical word, it's called ontology. And the whole bigger thing is called taxonomy. So in a larger framework, just imagine it's just a small microcosm. The number of elements in a typical relationship diagram for risk is huge. And if you do not actually kind of make those relationships, it is not machine readable. You need to kind of put your FAQs, you need to manually code it. So one of the things that we did is we went ahead and wrote those relationships. So what we now did is we have got the data, we got this big data, but we made the relationship between these data elements. And then, without coding, without you typing in, I could ask a question, show me control gap. And it understood control gap means controls which do not have any risk associated. It's just lying, it's just a control. I never coded it. You getting me? And now it is machine ready. And that's a big learning. And we never do this. We all in the process of just getting the data. And that's a big learning that we actually do. So if you're doing a process, we're doing big data initiatives, AI initiatives, and ML initiatives, ensure that you solve this particular problem. And then when you actually kind of put it to the bot, where you to kind of realize it is not the traditional way of drag, drop, or no. You can now ask in a natural language because it not only understands data, but understands the relationship between the data. With me? So that's a big learning. Data itself is not the new oil. Data in the context is the new oil. And that was a big learning that we actually kind of did. So we use this and say 90% of these bots will be replaced in 2023, in the next year. This is what the Gartner says actually, because they try to kind of do that by coding FAQs. This is what is traditionally most of the chatbots right now is doing. There was a beautiful one, there was actually who just before that who showed, and that is using the relationship, because they're understanding the relationship of English. But here you understand that you need to kind of create, depending upon your organization, if it is risk, then risk-related language, not just English as a language. And I might be speaking English, for example, retinopathy. There are, depending upon retinopathy, it is actually a central serous retinopathy or a hypertensive retinopathy, and then it could be non-proliferative or proliferative. You have no clue what I'm speaking. I'm speaking English, but you have no clue what I'm speaking. Why? Because that's a medical terminology, and if you don't actually kind of get that terminology in the medical context, you will never be able to ask a natural language question. You can get all the data, but you still have to code it. The other way of doing it actually is to kind of get this particular thing. Okay, so putting that across on your left-hand side, what you see is once you've done the relationship, then you have this IBM's Watson, that's what we used. It's one of the leaders actually in that particular space. To able to define relationships, then you can actually kind of get things like entity resolution done so that you can get the answers in your natural language. And that's why Smart Dubai, a lot of references in the region actually kind of very recently ASEAN kind of going in for that kind of a technology. Now on the right hand side, this could be any application. It could be a supply chain management solution of yours. It could be ERP of yours. We just use Open Pages, which is a leader when it comes to risk management solution. With me? So what we're trying to do is that not just the data, but the relationship of the data. And then you put a bot on top of it. Bot got it because now the data is machine readable. So it's which data you want to make it accessible. Anything, any corpus of information in your organization you want to make it accessible, go for this approach. We found it is one of the leaders. If you want specifically interested in IBM, reach to us from Watson actually. It's been the leader for quite some time. So it's not making data accessible, but data and knowledge in the context. So you're adding that knowledge also so that then it can actually kind of comes with matters of insight and things. So the example that we showed, of course, is for government and telco, and Watson AI services and Open Pages. Great. Now I told earlier one case that we are all biased. And the second use case actually is what we kind of call it as the life in the day two of AI. Let me ask you a question. Put them in order. So put them in order as if I give you grade 7, grade 2, grade 10. Put them in order. What will be the order? Grade 2, grade 7, and grade 10, right? I mean, that's the order. Okay, I'll give you 3 words. Put them in order. Love, justice, truth. Put them in order. Like, what comes first, and what comes next, and what comes next? It's not a trick question. We get this hierarchy wrong. So I've got 3 words for you. Love. What is the most important? What should you start with? Justice. Truth. What is the first thing should be? Love. Truth. Yeah. What is the second one? Justice. Oh, man, you guys are amazing. I mean, this is the first time you got the sequence right. I mean, Omanis are really human people because most of them say love. No, what is love if it is not justice? If it's not based on justice, what is justice? What is the justice that you're delivered if it is not based on truth? So truth is sublime, right? And based on that is the justice. I point across that we create models, and if it is not truthful, it's a problem. And that's one thing we learned the long way. So this example is actually for a banking customer, and we created models for this particular banking customer. Now, the data that we got, and that's a problem that I said, we got all their transaction data. And we started with this particular thing. But this data was actually, majority of the data was actually about people who are above the age of 30. Actually 32 to be precise. Above the age of 30. They are mainly male. They're mainly non-Emiratis. So this particular bank which I'm talking about, which when we did this particular project. You see what I'm saying? But we got all the data, and it was huge data actually. We're talking about approximately around 30 million contract data that we got, and so that's a great data. But you see the problem, and the accuracy came absolute. But here is the problem, it is automatically biased to a Emirati woman under the age of 30. Not because we wanted that actually, but there is a biasness in that particular data that we got. And most of the models that we make, we don't think about that particular thing. So that's a day 2 problem. Let's talk about if you're not reached the day 2, there is a day 0 problem and day 1 problem. We need to kind of get that sorted out. If you're not on that particular thing, speak to us. We can help you in that. And the way we actually help the day 0 and day 1 is start with a journey map, because you need to have a very clear idea as to what you're trying to solve. Don't just put AI for the sake of AI. Have a journey map, have very clear objectives where you want to kind of do. And there you start with the day 0, where we're saying the whole process of collecting the data, depending upon is that ELT or ETL, then refining that particular data, kind of see what your objective is. So it's always towards your objective. Start with the journey map. But once you've got that actually in shape, it is a very, very structified process. It says, get that, find the relevant data, prepare the data analysis, and create the ML, DL models. So that's what we kind of call it as the, depending upon what, I'm not getting into the nitty-gritties of it, what models you will use, supervised, unsupervised, all those particular things. That all kind of comes to the day 1 problem. That is, once you've got your data, day 0 is getting your data, day 1 is what algorithms to use against that prioritized objective. We did all this correct. Where we went wrong is the day 2 problem. We didn't actually have that, and we fixed it, but we faced a problem actually. So we had this particular model, beautiful diagrams, beautiful dashboards for the retail banking head, dashboards for the agents across. We started with 3, we actually eventually made 12 models. We had a portfolio analysis model, it had those statistical figures kind of coming out, all honky-dory, fantastic. Churn model, the accuracies, if you kind of look into it, not bad. And it said, these are the set of actions that you did. Where we went wrong is the day 2 problem. And day 2 problem actually is, you got that in shape, is to see the biasness in that. Is that ethics of that model? And this is where we went back and fixed that particular thing. We made that AI models trustworthy, because that's a foundational aspect. And this is something that you need to kind of constantly relook at it for looking and ensure that there is no biasness, there is an explainability of the model that actually kind of comes across, and ensuring that it is constantly looked for its drifting. So if you kind of look into it, this particular one, it's called OpenScale. We employ it on top of these models. So any model that we actually kind of had, we deployed on top of that. This is a day 2 problem, which we kind of call it as the trustworthiness of it. So today, those models that actually kind of goes through it know there is a drifting. We know in terms of an accuracy from a biasness point of view, we are able to get those extra details to it. So something that you need to kind of keep in mind. So it is important that trustworthiness of an AI model is very, very key. And the example that I talked about is actually a banking, but we also did this for a customer in the customs, in the models that we actually kind of did for the things they're importing. And the solutions that we used is called Data Fabric, Studio, Watson Studio, and OpenScale. Just if you're interested, actually, one of those nerds who wants to kind of see what's under the hood, those are the technologies. But if you want to kind of know more about it, do speak. We've got a whole GBM team out here, and we can help you in the day 0, day 1, and day 2 problems. Actually, we have got a very, very proven methodology, the D6 methodology, to kind of help you in doing it. Okay, having said that, I'm so happy right in the start, and the gentleman who's actually, who's a consultant, he bought in one aspect, and he said, it's good to kind of put your dollar in the first gentleman who said, in AI. And the second gentleman, he said, put your dollar in carbon management, right? Who uses AI? And that's something that we learned the hard way year before. I was actually there in COP27, and we've got now a practice on this particular aspect. So we have been doing performance management, but if you like it or not, there is a new aspect which is coming in, and the data points that you require is much larger than the typical performance management. It's called sustainable performance management. And the wordings for this particular thing is called ESG. A lot of us get the S, actually, sustainability. S is not sustainability, S is social. So ESG. And 87% of the companies says that that's a number one factor, but it's only 23% who have put an effort to it. There are few in this. So this is something that you need to kind of really look into, because that's another lesson that we learned the hard way. And we've got to practice to it. We'll see it across. If you see it, this is a kind of a report. Now, can you think of a company without a balance sheet? You can't. It is coming that you need to kind of have an ESG report very soon, 2023, next year. All the European companies, or European countries' companies, including also South Korea, Japan, Australia, South Africa, they are mandating every company should have an ESG report along with your balance sheet. We can help you that, which means that it will soon come here. Already in the net zero, 3 countries have already signed up. Oman is not there, but Oman is very soon catching. Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Bahrain is already there, which means it will come mandate to you, and it will come as a force which you need to kind of reckon. Already, any company which is listed in ADX or DFM needs ESG reporting. If you have not got that, talk to us. We can help you, because we've gone ahead and done that particular thing. So it's not how much money you make. It's not on the top line, but also how ethical you're doing it. The produce, the services, how sustainable that actually is. And how you treat your people, both your internal customers and external customers, with dignity. We don't have anything to measure that. We used to have a corporate social responsibility, but never had metrics. This gives you metrics, and there are standards like SASB. SASB is now getting replaced by IFRS. IFRS is getting, by the way, COP27, they introduced S1 and S2. The draft is already out, which means that IFRS will already have ESG reporting. And most of us, we are learning for the first time. So do that research, talk to us, we can help you in that journey, get that particular thing on, because it's going very, very fast. And we're using AI to do this, and you'll see as to how we're doing it. And it's not me, myself, and my dog. You as a company, what is your people doing when something else is happening in your community? Are you doing anything? Can you show a verifiable proof for that? Is your organization trustworthy? Is there a whistleblower policy? Is there a policy to kind of ensure there is no bribery happening? Is there equality and equity to the people on the board? It talks to a large genre of things which is more human in nature. So that's what it is. So it is not just increasing top line, improving bottom line, and managing risk. There's a 4th parameter, or a 4th imperative, and that's ESG. Already ESG has become ESG++. So with that note on, it's only 23% who have got few things which has been done. Although some 70+ said, yeah, that's the key thing. Global study shows only 23%. So if you're there, talk to us. It's moving from a shareholder to a stakeholder. And these are the companies where we have done, along with Sustainable Square. These are companies where we have helped them in their performance journey to do sustainable ESG reporting. And some of the largest banks in the region, some of the largest retailers in the region, some of the largest government organizations in the region, we have helped. So do reach out to us, and we do the entire preparation, integration report, and launching and getting you the certification. Fine. With that note on, that's the AI that you're using internally, which is, if you see on the left-hand side, we can take a report because you want to kind of do a benchmarking of you versus the other. And those reports are actually kind of coming. Instead of you looking into the data, you can take that PDF, put into the AI solution, and AI would do the whole reading of that document. You just make the first few pages. You underline and say, that's the heading, that's the context. And the rest, 150 pages, it automatically does it. And that's the AI that we have deployed, and that will be needed because the kind of metrics that you're talking about, if you want to kind of do in the journey, it's around 500 plus. So that's the key thing. Do speak to us, and that's my last slide, which says that sustainable performance management is key. Have a note for that. It's very, very important. So the example is applicable to any kind of industries. That's a quick summary of what we just now learned. These slides, I'm sure, is available across. And as you said, there is no AI without an IA. Speak to us. IBM has got a solution where we have made this whole thing as one engineered appliance. We'll be more than happy to kind of do a workshop with you where we can take you through this journey. It's offered to you, and once you qualify, as a service, where we can then do a small MVP with you. And we bring in this particular experiences to you. There are many more, but we thought we'll highlight these three. Thank you for your time. That's my key. If you want the presentation, please reach out to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy.